My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission, as always, is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be answering a question I get fairly often, and that is Anchorage a good place to live? And we'll be getting into all of that in just a minute. Before we get started, though, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Now let's go and jump into today's video. First thing that I would say if we were talking about is Alaska a good place to live or not is that you're going to see a lot of headlines out there and a lot of people talking about there's just in Anchorage, there's insane crime, there's homelessness everywhere, or this is just a place with a bunch of HOAs and well-manicured lawns, or it's a place where you go to live to kind of live off-grid and live more remote. And what I would say is Anchorage is so large, every one of those statements could be correct depending on what area it is that you're looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you kind of the good and the bad here, let you decide for yourself as to whether or not Anchorage is going to be your cup of tea. I cannot make that decision for you. Just going to give you some pros and cons and recommend you go check out some resources to better inform yourself to make a good decision. So looking first at the things that Anchorage has to offer is that in Anchorage, you have a lot more schools. Okay, that's really big. If you're looking for a specific program or your children have a certain need that you need filled, having more schooling options in Anchorage is not going to be a small thing. Another thing that's really important is there's a lot more shopping options over in Anchorage, which for some of you, not a big deal. You're perfectly fine just making that Costco run once every 2-3 months, and it's just no big deal. For others of you, having more shopping options is going to be a kind of a big lifestyle deal. So yes, Anchorage definitely does have the best shopping scene that you're going to find anywhere in the state. Another really big thing that Anchorage has to offer is there is no sales tax in the municipality of Anchorage, and that's kind of a good and a bad thing. We'll talk about what the downside of that is in just a minute, but there is no sales tax. And if you're going to make a big grocery run or you're going and buying big ticket items, that's going to be great to be able to have that. Another really nice thing about Anchorage is that you do actually have a pretty nice coastal trail and a bunch of other skiing trails that are really nice as well, where you can just go and enjoy those, kind of enjoy the peace and solitude for the most part, depending on what area that you go to, and you're not really having to leave the confines of the city. So, that's really great. And because it's a coastal trail, it's, you can go biking, walking, all that stuff during the summer months and during the winter time. You have sections of it for cross-country skiing, and you get a lot of other really nice trails too, like out in Kincaid. So if you're looking at a place where you can kind of enjoy the outdoors without necessarily having to go outside of the city limits, then, that's going to be a great option. One of the nice things about Anchorage, too, is technically you can do salmon fishing. And I say technically because you have to go down to Ship Creek, and this is not going to be the type of salmon fishing that most people come to Alaska for, where you're envisioning just going and salmon fishing in this really picturesque, majestic setting with bears in the distance that you can see and mountains just off on the horizon with a bald eagle swooping down. And where you go salmon fishing in Anchorage is definitely not that. It is Ship Creek, and it is muddy, and you've got a couple bridges right over you. The cars are zipping to and fro by, and it's going to feel like you're salmon fishing in the middle of kind of a downtown area because you are. So yes, you can technically do salmon fishing in Anchorage. It's not really a destination place that people are going to go out of their way to go to, but in a pinch, it'll work. Now, on the flip side, we just talked about salmon fishing in Anchorage. Anchorage is also going to be a place where if you need kind of that metropolitan kind of a vibe where, maybe you're a connoisseur of the performing arts or any number of, things where you're just going to have a better experience in the metropolitan setting, then Anchorage is really going to be your cup of tea. This one definitely is in nothing, and that is that there are more job opportunities in Anchorage than you're going to find in most other parts of the state. And there's a lot of tourist jobs really in a lot of different places. Those are kind of seasonal. If you're looking for more of a career track kind of a position, you're going to have more luck in Anchorage than you're going to find in most other places for most industries. You're also going to have a lot more varied housing options than what you're going to find in other parts of the state, because Anchorage pretty much has everything. I mean, it's got like the big multi-million-dollar property up on the hill. It's got like the, pretty much a little shack out in the middle of nowhere. It's got condos. It's got multifamily. The scope of what is available in the housing market is just going to be a lot broader than what you find in most other parts of the state. Another big thing that Anchorage has going for it is that even though it's this city and has kind of a little bit more of a metropolitan feel, you're still going to have pretty easy access to get to like the wilderness and be able to get outside and go enjoy the outdoors than what you would find in just about any other city in the lower 48. And last but not least, there is a very limited amount of buildable land left in Anchorage. So if you manage to find a home and lock it in up here, then chances are you are going to be pretty set for whatever the future holds as far as the housing market goes. Now, before we go any further, just wanted to take a quick break here to let you guys know that I do have a relocation guide for those of you who are considering moving to Alaska. There's always a ton of questions as people are kind of unpacking this and deciding if this is going to be the right move for them or not. If that's you, then do make sure you reach out on my website. The link for that is in the description section down below. Make sure you put relocation guide in the comment section so I know what to send you. Also, I do have a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast where we release a new episode every week talking with people about what it's like living in Alaska, from people who've either just moved here or have lived here for a while. So if you're trying to get more information about what it's actually like living here in Alaska, not just from me, but from other people as well, do make sure you go check that out. Again, link to that is going to be in the description section down below. Now let's go ahead and finish up today's video. I feel like I've been pretty good right now and giving you a good idea as to what all the positive aspects are of living in Anchorage, and I'm sure there are a lot more, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the downsides of living in Anchorage that maybe I haven't addressed very much in other videos. One of the big ones off the bat is that property taxes in Anchorage are typically going to be higher than what you're going to find in other communities in Alaska. And the reason for that, number one, the value of properties in Anchorage are typically going to be higher to begin with. And then also the rate at which you're being taxed is going to be higher than what you find in most other parts of the state as well. And the reason for that, there's really no other way for Anchorage to generate income for itself other than these property taxes. So anytime they have some new bond or anytime they have some new big road improvement that they want to do, then, guess what? Your property taxes just went up. And because they don't have sales tax or anything else, that is almost always going to lay on the shoulders of property owners. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is that while you're going to be able to get to the wilderness fairly quickly, you're also going to have to drive there. So it's not like you just live in the wilderness. You can find some places like that in Anchorage and still technically be in the municipality. It's not going to be a whole lot of places though. So you're still going to have to drive probably about 20-30 minutes at a minimum to get to a place where it kind of feels like more of a outdoors kind of an environment. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are living in Anchorage, the size of the lot that you live on is going to be a lot smaller than what you would find if you lived somewhere like the Matsu Borough, where usually the lots are going to be about an acre or so. It is a really rare find that you find a lot in Anchorage that's going to be about an acre, whereas other places that's just kind of par for the course. Another thing to keep in mind is snow removal for the roads in Anchorage are typically going to be slower than what you would find in other places like Wasilla and Palmer. And there's kind of overlapping responsibilities between the city and the state as to who's taking care of the snow removal on certain roads. So that can be a little confusing, but just anecdotally and from what other people have noticed too, there's the snow removal in Anchorage typically a little bit slower than what you find in some other sister communities. As with anywhere, there is going to be crime in Anchorage. And we've kind of talked about this before. And always what I tell people is you are going to be the best judge for yourself as to whether or not the crime in a certain area is going to be something that you can live with. So make sure you go check the crime map to really understand what you're signing up for in every area. Obviously, it's really about deciding what flavor of crime you're into. If you're more into carjackings, you might look to this area. If you're more into like burglaries, you might go check this area out. So you just want to make sure whatever area it is matches whatever flavor of crime that you're into. Last but not least, homes are going to be more expensive in Anchorage than they're going to be in places like the Mat-Su Valley. And not only do you get more land, but the homes are larger in the Mat-Su Valley, and they're going to be newer. And the trade-off, though, is you're going to be driving at least 30, 40 minutes. If you're working in the municipality of Anchorage, you're going to be driving about 30, 40 minutes one way, and that can get old for some people. If that's no factor, Mat-Su Valley is not a bad option for you. So these are going to be your pros and cons of living in Anchorage, and only you ultimately can make the decision as to whether or not it's going to be a good community for you to live in. I know a lot of awesome people who live in Anchorage, and they have nothing but good things to say about it, and they absolutely love being there, wouldn't want to be anywhere else, and it's going to be your choice as to where you're going to be most happy. Obviously, I'm more than happy to help you find property in the area, so if that's something you're considering, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you have. As always, thank you for watching, though. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you next time.